Welcome into another video. We have finally moved in to the offensive side of the ball for my 2026 NFL draft positional rankings, and I had to call in my boy Ryan Cash Sharma for some help. I've been wanting somebody to talk with in these videos about these positional rankings, because when you're sitting there and you're having these conversations with yourself, Ryan, you know, you're talking to yourself. Like it's easy to make you believe it. I want to be bought into other players, and I want people to buy into my players as well. So I'm excited for the conversation. You ready for it?
Yeah, I'm excited. No, this is something I always do every year just in my own head, but it's good to put it on, video, just so we can come back to it years from now, see how we did, things like that.
Exactly.
And hopefully also help some people out that want to know, where these tight ends should be ranked.
Yeah, exactly. And, we're no experts ourselves, but I feel like with the entire draft thing is just you're throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping you hit a bullseye. It's so hit or miss. Not every single first round pick is gonna work out, and you can be a stud as a 7th round pick. It's a complete gamble. The entire NFL draft is, and we're just taking our shots and giving our opinions on these players. Ryan also does Dynasty content with me as well, so subscribe to our channel, and we're going to have a ton of Dynasty content coming out this year. Let's go ahead and get into it, though. Me and Ryan have 4 different players who are unique and separate from – so my guys aren't on Ryan's board. His guys aren't on my board. We have 8 players who are on both of our boards, but here we go. We're going to talk about these 4 players first. At my 7 and 8 spot, I have Dalen Bentley and Nate Boerkircher. And at the 9 and 10 spot for Ryan, he has Carson Ryan and Joe Royer. We're going to kick it off with Carson Ryan first. Ryan, this one, I had to dive into the bag. Not a combine invite here, so he wasn't even a part of my original Big 20 at the tight end group. But looking into the production, looking into the talent, I can understand why you're high on him. Your comp for him is Jake Ferguson, but it is red. For preface, when we have our player profiles up on the board here, Ryan's got his comp. If it is in red, that means he is very low. He thinks it's a low chance that player turns into that. If it's yellow, you think there's a medium chance he turns into that player. And if it's green, you think there's a very high chance that he lives up to that comp. I had a 6.28. Too great on him, which falls around the 6th round projection. Ryan, get into it, though. This is your guy. Let me hear what you like about him.
Yeah, this is my sleeper of the class for sure. Like you said, didn't even get invited to the NFL Combine, which is a travesty in my opinion. He did do a pro day at BYU, and he actually tested out pretty well. He got a 9.29 RAS, according to the people at MathBomb, which proves that he's a pretty solid athlete. He is a bit undersized, as you see, 6'3", 255, but had a very productive senior year at BYU. 620 yards and 3 touchdowns. Watching his film, he really stands out as a blocker, and he earns a lot of high marks for that from a lot of people that I trust and a lot of the film watchers. He really stands out as a blocker. And then in the receiving game, he wins downfield a lot, which really jumped out on film to me. He looks like a good target down the field, but is also solid as a check down option. He runs good routes, creates good separation. He's good after the catch. And he only had 2 drops last year. And like you said, my NFL player comp for him is Jake Ferguson. I think he reminds me a lot of him, where he's not some incredible athlete, but he gets targets at every level of the field, whether it's, quick check downs or deep balls up the seam, corner sails. Jake Ferguson's also a very capable blocker, and sometimes the Cowboys will just have him stay in and block if they're facing a top edge. So I think Carson Ryan has that kind of potential. So the question is, what's the catch? Why is he only number 10 on the list with all this praise? And really, it's as simple as this. He's probably not going to get drafted. So, while I might have all the confidence in the world about a player, the odds he actually reaches Jake Ferguson level of productivity as an undrafted free agent, probably low, just because of the obstacles he's going to have to face, being probably a practice squad guy. And it's not impossible. It's been done before at the tight end spot. Obviously, Antonio Gates is a Hall of Famer. He'd be the big one that jumps out. But I also just think tight end is kind of a position where you've seen low draft picks have success. So I wouldn't be surprised if Carson Ryan's next on that list.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think for me, I think he's going to get drafted from diving into the research and hearing guys like Nate Tice even say that he thinks that he's going to get drafted. Nate Tice even had a 4th round grade on him. I thought Nate Tice, that's a little high for me. It's a little high for my taste. But overall, I think the flashes were there in his final year at BYU for Carson Ryan. I think though, like, I need to see more. Like, you talked about his potential down the field. He had a very low average depth of target, though, at only 6.5 yards. A lot of his work came from the check down, and I think he gets upfield quick. He does show strong ability to carry guys with him, just run people over. But that kind of does worry me in terms of, like, we need to see it more consistent. And I would love to see him take some of that physicality that he has as a blocker, because he can block in line, he can block outside, he works well to the second level. I loved what I've seen from his blocking tape. I would love to see him take some of that physicality into the catch point. He's got really good hands and reliable hands, but I think when a defender tries to challenge him at the catch point, he struggles. He's got a low contested catch rate. He's got a low catch radius overall in general as well. Only a 33-inch vertical, shorter arms. The length isn't overly ideal. So you kind of want, that's like one thing you want from a reliable tight end, is having a strong catch radius, somebody who can win the contested catch. But I think overall, this is a running back turned tight end. He's a 4-star prospect as well. I think this is somebody that we could see getting some fullback reps. He's got that build to maybe be like, he's maybe a little too tall to be playing fullback consistently like that, but I think he's going to be a versatile player. And I'd say that he's probably falling around my 13-14 tight end right now, so not too far off of your ranking. Respect. Let's go ahead and move on to your number 9 tight end, Joe Royer, and he was my number 11. So this is somebody who just missed the cut. I think that we're both, we're right there with each other on this one. What stands out to you, though, to put him in your top 10?
Yeah, I would say this is like my sleeper number 2, like my guy. Like, I really think Joe Royer has potential to be a good starting tight end in this league. I just think, similar to Carson Ryan, he faces the same obstacles of being a low draft pick. Like you said, you think he's going to go 5th, 6th. I've seen some people say like 6, 7. I don't think he's in the undrafted range, but still, he's going to be facing those obstacles of being probably a tight end 2, 3 to start his career.
Yeah, hold on. Let me jump in here real quick. I just feel like one thing I forgot to touch on before we got into this video is, like, we might think these guys are 5th or 6th round picks, but we're going through 15 to 20 to 25 tight ends, and on average only like 14 to 15 guys get drafted. That's what we're saying, is like Ryan brings up a great point with that. It's like Carson Ryan and Joe Royer very well could not be drafted. Like, there's a chance. Go on though. Sorry.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, his production profile is a little bit strange as well. He started his career at Ohio State and really just couldn't break out there at all. I think injuries had a big part in that. But then he transfers to Cincinnati, and he has 2 very good years of production. He actually matched Travis Kelce's production in Cincinnati, which I thought was interesting. He has legit speed in the vertical game. He can win deep in play action. He seems pretty athletic. We didn't get testing from him, but he seems like a guy that would test really well. He's good out of breaks. He's got good route running. He's good after the catch. And I thought he was a really good blocker as well. Now, he probably lacks that dynamic trait to be a primary target. Like, he's a good athlete, but not great. But yeah, so it's like, for my NFL comparison, I thought Gunnar Helm from last year reminded me a lot of Joe Royer. The difference was that Helm had this big breakout year and got drafted pretty high, and now has like a legit starting opportunity in Tennessee. Like, I'd be surprised if Royer got that chance by year 2 to be a number 1 tight end. But just in terms of play style, he really reminds me of Gunnar Helm. And I think he's got that juice to be a good receiving tight end, and then offer pretty good blocking in line as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if he becomes a starting tight end in this league eventually.
Yeah, he's a willing run blocker. I'll give him that. He's willing to do it. I think he just lacks the aggression to be somebody in line. I think maybe he's got the ceiling of a really strong, eventually potentially starting more versatile slot wide receiver. I think this is somebody who could maybe find himself in like an offense with a very strong true wide tight end. I think Joe Royer is more of a hybrid, because like we talked about, he's quick-footed and he's very agile, but he's not necessarily the sharpest in the most clean route runner. He's good. He can run the route tree, but he's not the sharpest. And he's not, like you said, there doesn't have a trait that really necessarily stands out. So I could see him in like being the pass catching option with a team who maybe runs a run heavy scheme. and they want to open up some 12, some misdirection. This could be your Joe Royer guy because he is leaky in that sense. He's got quick feet. He can win quick, and he's got good burst. He just doesn't have the, I would say, the overall long speed that kind of really jumps off the film, and he doesn't have a whole lot of wins at the third level. That kind of worries me long term about Joe Royer, but I do love the ceiling as a potential, slot option, a good receiving tight end, somebody who can bring juice to your offense, especially like I said, I think his best work could come if he's going to a team who has a really strong inline blocking wide tight end and get some work in some 12-man sets.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and move into Nate Boerkircher, my number 8 guy out of Texas A&M. And the one thing I just think that this guy, you're drafting an extension of your offensive line. And the one thing that I've kind of noticed overall with this class, and maybe my mentality shifting, maybe I'm getting older, maybe it's now that I'm turned 26 and I'm starting to buy into the 3 yards on cloud of dust football. What's going on with me? I don't know. But we're playing in an NFL game now where running has been the most important it's been since the 2010s, or we're talking like 2000s. The success rates are very high. This guy is going to be an extension of your offensive line. This is a guy who can block inline, he can block outside, he can work his way to the second level, and he is a very strong player in doing so. He's got very reliable hands. He can get open quickly. He is physical at the top of his route. And once he has the ball in his hands, I don't think he offers much in terms of yards after the catch ability, but he's a monster of a human being who, the 247 mass isn't overly great, but he looks so much bigger on tape and he plays a lot more physical on tape, where I think he's going to be running guys over. The age isn't overly great, but I think this is a guy who's going to thrive. He's going to get a lot of time on field, and it's not going to be a stat sheet filler kind of guy. But these guys are becoming more important now than they have ever been. Teams are starting to thrive in 12-man and 13 personnel. You see the Rams, you see the Chicago Bears having success with these guys on the field at all times. I think Boerkircher brings so much value to an offense.
It's funny you say that because I totally agree with just the way the NFL is trending. And I think it's funny because I feel like we're moving like away from like these tweener type of tight ends that are like more so receiver types that can't really block in line. And, coincidentally, there's a lot of those guys in this draft class, and we're going to get to them later on. But I think that's just why I'm kind of lower on this tight end class, like as a general feeling. Like I don't feel like it's a Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, Trey McBride, Brock Bowers. Like there's nobody like that. They're more like these athletes that are 6'3", can't really block, but maybe could be a slot receiver. And I think the NFL is kind of moving away from that. But yeah, going back to Nate Boerkircher. He's a bit undersized. He didn't test, and I'm not sure how good of an athlete he would have been if he did. He is a very good blocker, like you said. I think he has a chance of kind of being similar to Oscar Delp, who we're going to get to later, where he's going to be a lot better as a pro than a college player. Like his production was very, very bad at Texas A&M, but I think his skills translate very well to the next level. My pro comparison being Brock Wright, I think that's a pretty good comparison because he's going to be an instant tight end 2 type with some underrated receiving ability, but definitely will contribute right away in the run game, also as a pass blocker. And then, like I said, can give you a little bit in the receiving game as well.
Yeah, wholeheartedly. Like this is somebody we want to talk about our Chicago Bears. With Cole Kmet swirling rumors being traded, like this could be somebody I could buy into later in the draft, somebody who could easily slip into the 7th round because his skill set isn't phenomenal. It doesn't pop off the charts. And with these tight ends, it's so hit or miss. But I would not be surprised if somebody like Nate Boerkircher goes in the 4th round because of how much value he can bring to a heavy run scheme offense. Like this guy, I think is just an extension of your offensive line. I genuinely believe he could come into the NFL with how much value I saw and how much he showed on film as a blocker and be a top 15 run blocking, even pass blocking tight end overall immediately on day one. And that's somebody who's going to get you 40% reps, snaps in an offense. And finding somebody with that value in the 5th round, I think is phenomenal. Let's go ahead and move into my next guy, Dalen Bentley. And boy, I think this is going to be my guy of the class. He is so elusive, so much fun to watch. I don't understand the Josh Oliver comp. I think we're looking at the next Tyler Higbee of our generation. And that's not overly great, but Tyler Higbee, baby, he was a really good tight end for a long time, and he still is. He brings value to the Los Angeles Rams and even fantasy value as well. He was a sleeper of a player. He's got that ideal build, 6'4", 253. He runs well. He's very smooth. He's extremely good after the catch. I mean, this is a guy who feasts in zone coverage as well. He finds the soft spots in the zone coverage. He runs people over. He gets upfield extremely fast. He's got very good lateral speed, very good power, and I think his traits and yards with after the catch ability are through the roof. And like I said, he's athletic. He can get open quick. I wouldn't say it's next level route running ability, but I think this is somebody who can have an impact on day one. I genuinely believe that.
Yeah. So with Bentley, the two things that probably kept him off my list were just his lack of route running nuance. I don't think he's that great of a route runner. He doesn't separate as easily as you'd want. I do think he can be a mismatch against safeties and linebackers, though. If he's matched up in man coverage with them, he's definitely got the size and the speed and athleticism to separate from them. But I do think that there's a little bit of a problem with his blocking ability specifically. He's a bit undersized, and I just really thought he struggled in line when I saw him play. So I thought of him as a nice little tight end too that can give you a receiving upside, and that's what I thought Josh Oliver was. Josh Oliver's not your traditional tight end two that's more so of a blocker, but he's someone that can give you 300, 400 yards in the receiving game. That's kind of
I think maybe he's a little bit bigger than Gerald Everett, but somebody along the lines of Gerald Everett who brings versatility and speed to your tight end room. But overall, in run heavy, he's going to be more of a third down option. If you're running 12 or 13 on a third down, I don't see, like I said, I agree with you on everything that you said. He needs a lot more refinement in his overall route running. I think he's got a good sense of once he gets into the open field of, like I said, finding the soft spots in the zone. He's got a good feel for the defense. But overall, he's not a true winner. He could be a lot more crisp in his routes. And when it comes to the inline blocking, he struggles a decent bit of that. Yeah. So that's why I think in the fourth round, if you're looking for some receiving upside, he's there. And he's 25, but with the tight ends, it's not a massive position of need that where you're losing sleep over it like you would with, let's say, a receiver or a left tackle or something like that.
Yeah.
He can give you a good 6 years of service, which I feel like unless you're one of the all-time greats, that's about the shelf life of your mid-round tight end as well. Let's go ahead and move into this. Is it. That was our four guys. Now we're going to start getting into the guys who we both have in our top 10. We're kicking it off with number 1. My number 10, your number 8, Jack Endries out of Texas. And Ryan, we'll let you kick this one off. You got him higher on your list here. Dalton Schultz is the comp. You're medium on that. Talk about it.
Yeah, so this is a guy who had really good production at Cal and kind of took a step back at Texas. I look at him like he's a good all-around player. Nothing really jumps out, but there's no clear weaknesses. He can really run routes. He's good after the catch. He's a solid athlete. He can separate, good blocker. But yeah, nothing, no trait particularly stands out, which I think is a common theme with a lot of the tight ends around this range. I think he can be a good player versus zone, where he settles down in the middle of the field. You get him the ball in the flat or off of play action. When I was watching his film, almost all of his highlights come off of getting open in zone coverage. So I don't think this is a guy necessarily that is a mismatch nightmare, can line up against man coverage or line up outside and win consistently. He's more so of a guy that wins in zone. And that kind of reminds me of Dalton Schultz, just kind of an kind of player, but no true weaknesses and can deliver you starter production. Dalton Schultz is a guy to me that gets open versus zone a lot and gives you 500, 600 yards. But, I'm assuming most teams would prefer him as a backup just because, there's no traits that stand out. But, reliability is definitely not a bad thing. And I think that Jack Endries can carve out a role for himself. The comp for Dalton Schultz is a little bit dicey because he likely will never get the opportunities that Dalton Schultz has had. We kind of have to talk about how has Dalton Schultz been a starting tight end in the league for 5+ years? Like he transitioned perfectly from Dallas to Houston. I don't think he deserved that contract at all. But yeah,
No.
like he's a very average tight end in terms of talent and ability. But somehow, somehow just continues to get that starting nod. And if Jack Endry's got that same opportunity, I think he could deliver that same production. But more likely, he's going to settle into a tight end 2 kind of role just based on his draft capital.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I think you nailed it when you talked about an overall reliable player. This is a guy who can pass block and run block. He's not overly great at it. He doesn't have the ideal mass for it, but he can do it. He's willing, and he's not bad at it either. It's not like, oh my God, like a caricature for me, where it's like this guy's a complete extension of your offensive line, but he's a reliable blocker. He's a reliable pass catcher. I don't think he's going to bring any special trait to you. But when I think about reliable blocker, reliable pass catcher, can get open in zone, I think you nail it with the Dalton Schultz comp. Very similar builds. He's not this thick, stocky guy, but he's got good size. He's got, overly solid length. It's nothing crazy. But, for me, I like Jack Endry a lot. I think, like you said, a tight end 2, you kind of nailed it for me there. I just think overall, he's not going to be much of a separator. I don't think he's going to be this massive, yards after the catch guy. He's got pretty good long speed though. Like I do think like if he can sneak into that like seam, he can go for a long time, and he's not the easiest guy to bring down. He's aggressive. He's physical. So yeah, he offers some upside when we're talking more linear and not lateral here.
I agree.
All right, cool. Let's go ahead and move into our next player. He is my number 9, and you're number 4. We have 2 players here that we're going to be going back to back who are in one of our top 5s and not in our top 5s. And this one here we are, Michael Trigg, your number 4 guy. Very highly likely on the Isaiah Likely comp, Ryan. Let's hear it here. This is your guy, top 5 guy. Let me hear it.
Yeah, so I mean, he's a bit undersized, and he also didn't test, so it's hard to say what kind of athlete he is. But he had a really, really strong breakout year at Baylor this year, 700 yards, 6 touchdowns. I think what stands out about him is just like the ceiling and the upside. I mean, he makes some incredible, spectacular catches. Like if this was a Madden card, he'd have a 99 spec catch. Like he's got some like high ceiling, like highlight reel type of plays. And, I think that's kind of the thing with him. Like his highs are highs and his lows are lows. He's not a great blocker. I would say a below average blocker. I don't think he would test well athletically. And that's why I kind of looked at the Isaiah Likely comp. I remember Isaiah Likely being one of the worst RAS scores for a tight end like ever. I think it was like 2 or 3. But then I remember Isaiah Likely, burst onto the scene and kind of wowed everybody with some of the catches and plays he made. And I really look at Michael Trigg as like that same type of player. He's probably a mid to late round pick. But I do think that he has the ability to see the field in tight end 2 sets. And as a receiver, it's kind of like Isaiah Likely where, the highlight plays show you what kind of upside he has. But then, the inconsistencies with the drops and just like the blocking kind of takes him off the field. Like I'm sure Baltimore Ravens fans know, like, they've probably clamored for Isaiah Likely so much just because of some of the plays he makes. But then when he does get that like extended run, you kind of see some of those flaws pop up. So I just think this is a guy who's going to have, really high highs, really low lows, but I would say ranks pretty high in this tight end class just because he's got that trait or that dynamic ability that a lot of guys don't.
Exactly. I think like you couldn't have nailed this any better. And that's why I have him lower on my list, is that the red flags do scare me and the inconsistencies do scare me, but the talent is there. I mean, there's, like you said, the highlight reels, the spec catch would be 99. His break tackle would be 97. Like this dude can carry guys. He just is, he just mows people over. He's got the physicality to just drag guys with him, but the length of the field, it takes multiple guys to bring this dude down. But 2 suspensions on his record, both undisclosed, bouncing around 3 programs, left 1 program in the middle of the season. The drops, those fly off the tape. Lack of aggression and effort and technique as a blocker. Like that kind of shit matters to me. Like that you can see how I've been doing my rankings, how much the blocking has been mattering to me. Like you said, I don't see the ceiling of this being an every down guy. This is going to be more of your sub package tight end. I think the talent and the ceiling is there though. Like he genuinely could be like a starting tight end with how much talent he has there. And if he tested well, I think that we're talking about a 3rd round pick. There's probably a reason he didn't test at either
I know.
of his things, because he probably wasn't going to test well. And he is probably floating in that 4th round to 5th round range because of the traits that are there. And if he tested well, I think we're talking about 3rd round pick right now. But way too many inconsistencies and way too many flaws in his tape for me to buy into the reliability, because being a reliable tight end just means so much to me. Let's go ahead and move into our next one. And this is Max Clare. This is going to be a fun one to talk about. Ryan has him as the number 7 tight end of the class. Me at my number 3. Ryan's based, baby. Let me hear it. Max Clare at the 7. I mean, I guess I could either kick it off as well because you're a little lower, but I feel like you're going against the consensus here.
Yeah, this is probably like the most different I am from consensus on a player. I don't know. I don't really see it with him. He had an okay season at Ohio State. He was much better with Purdue, but I didn't think he was a great blocker on film. I think he lacks size and strength. He's a bit undersized. He's actually a quarterback convert, and you can kind of see that show up in his game. Like he's still very, very raw at the position. I think when you like tight end's a position where you get a lot of converted like positions to becoming a tight end. And I think the thing that always shows up is the blocking, right? Because quarterbacks never blocked a day in his life. So that's going to be something that takes a lot of time for him to come along. And right now, I don't see it as like a strength of his at all. I'd actually call it a weakness. He has some drop issues as well. He's a pretty solid mover and runs good routes, but I don't think he separates, and he lacks that high end athleticism. So to me, he's kind of like the budget Eli Stowers, who we're going to get to later, because Eli Stowers is also a quarterback convert. And I think that Max Clare is kind of like the lesser athlete version of him. My NFL comp is Brenton Strange, which I think is a pretty solid comp because Brenton Strange is also one of those really good athletes and receivers, but the ceiling is just limited because he doesn't really excel at blocking. And then that athleticism isn't dynamic enough to be like, oh, we got to get the guy the ball all the time. But definitely has like that upside of being a starting tight end in the league.
I think like you're right in the sense of he's not a strong blocker, but I've seen so much Dalton Kincaid in his tape. Like elusive, fluid mover. I think that he might have like some of the best agility of the class outside of Eli Stowers, who is essentially just a wide receiver. I mean, he's 5 less pounds away from being a wide receiver. He can cut, he can move in the open field. It's when the contact comes in the air where he becomes a lot less fluid, and when he leaves his feet, he becomes a lot less fluid. If you can hit this player in stride, how quickly he can burst up the field, and how physical and violent he can be, but at the same time how elusive he can be, I think there's so much Kincaid in that, and you saw so much more of it at Purdue. A lot less options and a lot more mouths to feed at Ohio State. You have always 3 high-level receivers and good running backs coming out of that program. So I think that, he's not going to be your inline blocking tight end, and he maybe lacks the hybrid that you would like for him. I think he gives the effort. Probably will work better outside in more screen routes than he will moving linebackers or defensive ends. But overall, I think like if you can find an offense where you can pair him with somebody like Dalton Kincaid has, it could be a 800, 900 yard guy.
Ooh, those are lofty projections. I thought Kincaid was a way better prospect.
Oh, I'm not laying it down. Like if Dalton Kincaid was the comp here, I'd maybe have it at yellow, maybe even red. Kincaid was a phenomenal prospect, much better than Max Clare was. I still think that he's floating 3rd round pick, but I've seen so much of the ceiling of Kincaid that I'm buying into the traits.
Okay.
All right, moving into our next guy. That's Justin Joly out of NC State. He is my number 6, the number 5 for Ryan. So pretty even guy here for us. You've got the comp at Jonnu Smith, Ryan. You're pretty medium on that, but I like it. I think that makes sense for Justin Joly. I think that's a pretty good comp for him.
Yeah, when I was watching his film, he's a really elite pass catcher. I don't think he ever drops the ball. He's a very strong route runner, good blocker. He'd genuinely be one of my favorite tight ends in this class. He just doesn't really have the speed to separate, and you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't run the 40, but I think his top end speed looks bad. Also, he's more of a smaller stature player, so it kind of makes it hard because usually the smaller tight ends are the elite athletes, and that's not really the case here. So it's you're not getting the athleticism, you're also not getting the physicality and the jump ball contested catcher. And I think that's why Jonnu Smith's kind of my perfect NFL comp, because I always thought Jonnu Smith's another guy that's kind of good at everything, has great hands, but was just undersized and lacked that top end elite speed to put him as a legit tight end one. And unless he goes to Arthur Smith or something, but
because Jonnu Smith had that athleticism to him. I mean, this is somebody they were lining up in the backfield, but it was never a top end guy. No. And the one thing that really stood out to me is when you're talking about him being undersized, this guy's contact balance is terrible. He's got some wow catches and some really good contested catches up there. But I mean, when we're talking about when he gets hit, he goes down. This guy drops. Yeah. This guy drops to the floor that. You want your tight end to be able to have some physicality in him when we're talking about breaking tackles and be able to carry guys. That's just very wide receiver-esque of me. And I do think he's somebody who could be a little bit more physical and a little bit more sharper at the top of his routes, but there is still so much to like on his film. He's got an extremely large catch radius. Despite his, lack of overall build, good arm length, good vertical. Overall, this guy can go up there and get it. I do think he's good, linear speed. This is a guy who can move across the field very well, separate with linebackers, maybe them slower guys. If he gets lined up on more of a Mike, a slower guy, or a Sam, that he can beat them kind of guys in man coverage. But like you said, there wasn't necessarily any insane athletic traits that stood out to me. And he's a physical and willing blocker, but nothing overall stood out to me from his tape. But I love the reliable hands. Only one drop in 2025, and he can run the route tree. He's very fluid. It's just the lack of yards after the catch ability because he doesn't have the elite separator trait. And once he gets hit, he's hitting the ground. He's going to be more of a possession catch tight end, kind of like a quicker athletic version of Cole Kmet.
Yeah, best hands, and I would say the best hands in the class though, from the tight end position.
Oh my God, this guy can pluck the ball from anywhere. This guy's got such reliable hands. It's so good. Let's go ahead and move on here. Next guy, and another one where we're very close on. We're just swapping the 5 and the 6 here. This is Sam Roush, and I like this guy a lot, Ryan. I think that he's got is Kyle Rudolph back? He's got so much Kyle Rudolph in him. He's going to be an overall good player for his size at 6'6", 267. He can run and move pretty damn well. And boy, I mean, he is a break tackle machine. He throws stiff arms out there. He runs guys over. He can carry guys with them. He's a very reliable blocker. His ceiling is limited. I don't ever see him being a 1,000-yard receiver. I think you're looking at but I do think he can be a consistent 600 to 800-yard guy who brings so much upside overall to your team because of the blocking traits and all of that.
I agree. I knew you'd like this guy when you were talking about how much you like tight ends being good blockers. I mean, his blocking jumped off the tape. I think he's easily the best blocker in this class. 6'6", 267. He's a monster. Like you said, he tested really, really well. He scored a 9.94 on the RAS score, which is insane.
Wow, I didn't even look into his RAS score. Maybe because I didn't think it was going to be that high. I see the 267, and I was like, all right, well.
9.94. I think it's a bit deceiving because I think most of his speed probably is just straight in a straight line. I don't really think he's much of a matchup threat as a receiver in the sense of he's going to win in man coverage. He's going to separate. He's going to beat you down the field. I think he's someone that finds the soft spot in the zone and then is really good after the catch. He's got average speed, I would say. He's not a great route runner, but if he gets like if he got that Tyler Warren role from this year where he just gets spammed in the flats off like play action, I could see him being insanely productive. I just don't think he's going to have that role. I don't think he's going to be a primary target in an offense, especially as like a third, fourth round pick. I think he's more so going to be pigeonholed as an inline blocker just because of how dominant he is at that. And that's why like my NFL comparisons Dawson Knox, because I think Dawson Knox had receiving juice early in his career, but once they got Dalton Kincaid, they were like, hey, you're just going to be our inline blocking tight end, and because you're really good at it. And I think that's what's going to happen with Sam Roosh, where he's going to be a tight end 2, a top-notch tight end 2 in this league for a very long time, just because of how strong of a blocker he is.
Exactly. I mean, Dawson Knox continues to get paid a pretty decent amount of money, where I'm like, holy shit, they're giving him that much money again. But yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. And then this is maybe a little corny, but it's the Stanford thing. Like them guys are just geniuses. Like it's West Coast Ivy League. They're smart and they're very genius guys. So I like that a lot about him as well. I think this is going to be one of those leader, team captain guys, very reliable football player. The only thing where he struggles with is his drops. Like obviously, like, but when we're talking about his size and his build, we know he's not going to be an extremely elusive route runner and some athletic overall freak where he's blowing by guys. But when we're talking about reliability, he had 7 drops in 2025, which I'm not a fan of that. That's the only part where it's like, wake up a little bit. Let's go ahead and move into our next guy, though. And this is definitely one of the more intriguing players of the class, and that's Oscar Delp, the unproductive wonder of the class. And I'm going to throw a little bonanza comp out there like the Vikings fans did for J.J. McCarthy, calling him like the next Joe Burrow. George Kittle?
Yeah, I see that from just like the college production standpoint.
The lack of college production, how phenomenal he is as a blocker, the athletic traits, the upside that he has, the yards after catch, physical at the point of attack, point of the catch. Like that's the bonanza comp for me, because there's very little of it, but it's there for me. It's there.
No, I like it. I played it a little bit safer with Dallas Goedert just because I don't think he is that like top tier athlete particularly. I get that he tested off the charts really, really well, but he's not in like that Brock Bowers or Colson Loveland, just in terms of like the hip mobility and how they get in and out of breaks in their routes. Like I think Delp's a little more stiff. Obviously the poor production might turn a lot of people off, but I think a lot of that was like he was competing with Brock Bowers early in his career. And then once Bowers left, it was kind of a kind of a circus at Georgia. There was a lot of changes at quarterback, a lot of changes at play caller. But yeah, like you said, he's a really, really good blocker. So he's going to thrive in line. I thought his route running was, probably one of the more impressive things about him and one of the more impressive traits in the class. Like he's a really good route runner. I think he separates well, but he's just not as like fluid or explosive as the elite tight ends in the league, which is why I would say like maybe that second tier of tight end, like Dallas Goedert, I think represents that pretty well, just in the sense that like impressive receiver and blocker, but not necessarily that next level explosive, Kelsey or Bowers, more so like that second tier of tight ends. So I think he's got a good chance to kind of play that same role that Goddard did, where he gets drafted in the second or third round, maybe sits behind an older vet, and then takes over and produces at a really high level.
Yeah, and the Eagles, they were able to pull that one off twice, going from Brent Selleck to Zach Ertz, and then Zach Ertz to Dallas Goedert, and pretty impressive stuff from them. Overall, though, I think that's the bonanza comp. I don't think his after the catch ability is that of George Kittle's, George Kittle can run guys over and make guys miss and go the distance 60 yards with his
psycho personality too.
Yeah, exactly. And another just red flag thing is he has the traits and the size and very similar of that to Brock Bowers. He played with Brock Bowers. He was supposed to be the guy in line, and it just never hit that ceiling. Do I think that's maybe a little bit on the quarterback room and the inconsistencies there? For sure. But he never hit. I mean, Brock Bowers had Stetson Bennett. Like, it's not like he had anything overly special either.
He had Todd Monken,
Delp
though.
never hit. He did have Todd Monken. But, yeah, Oscar Delp never reaching that ceiling that Brock Bowers did, which is probably going to turn some guys away. I think he's very worthy of a third-round pick. I think the ceiling is there, and I do think NFL teams are going to find that. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's going day 3. But I do think, like, an NFL team, it's the draft, baby. People are throwing darts at a dartboard. He's easily somebody who could go in the 3rd round.
He seems like he's a rising prospect to me. Yes. I would be pretty
Oh.
surprised if he wasn't. Yeah, like 2nd or 3rd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that we're talking about the potential here, and it's so hit or miss with the tight end class, because I think that we're talking about half of this class being potentially undrafted, the ones that we're talking about here, like just with the red flags of Trig and the lack of overall juice from injuries, and then Dalen Bentley, Carson Ryan. Like, we're talking about potentially undrafted guys there being in the back half of our second end, and we haven't even touched on guys like Marlon Klein or Eli Roridan out of Notre Dame. But I think that we're talking about Roush. Roush could easily, I think, be a 3rd-round pick with how much versatility he brings with yards after the catch, how good of a blocker he is, how athletic he is for his size. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out and how they view the tight end class, because it's always one of those hit or miss classes. Here we go. This is our last top 10 slide, because we both have the number 2 and the number 1 guy, and that's Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt and Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon. We'll kick it off with Eli Stowers here. Like I said, we're about 5 to 10 pounds away from being a tight end. That's 6'4", 239 pounds. Ryan's comp is Evan Ingram, which there's obviously so much of that in his tape. Ryan, what really stands out to you the most, though, similar to Evan Ingram?
I would say he's a really great athlete for his size, and that showed up in his testing. Once again, a high RAS score on MathBomb, 9.4. I feel like a lot of just people are testing insanely high on MathBomb nowadays. It's like,
yeah,
it's
almost like it's like cut the guys from post 2000, please. Like, because they're always like,
they need to redo it.
This guy's ranked 23rd. It's like, all right, we don't get how many of those guys from the 89 season that you were testing in the combine, or other than Deion Sanders, but go on.
Yeah, but I think once Eli Stowers transferred to Vanderbilt in 2024, he put together 2 really, really productive seasons. I think his film is really nice. It's not great. I think he struggles as a blocker with bigger defenders. And like you said, he looks more like a wide receiver to me, which isn't really a terrible thing, but I'm not sure he actually has the ability to like start at wide receiver, like especially outside. I think he might be like one of these tweener types where, you don't really know if he's an inline tight end because he struggles with blocking, but then can't really line up outside and win versus press coverage, win versus, cornerbacks. So I think his route running and separation skills are good, but not great. What he's really great at is once he's in open space and he has the ball in his hands, he's really tough to bring down, and he moves really well in open space, which really stood out. My NFL comp for him is Evan Ingram, and he reminds me of him in the way that, he's not this dominant, never before seen like combine freak, but he's really athletic and skilled as a receiver. And in a lot of ways, he's probably not elite at anything. He's not elite at anything, but, the things that held Evan Ingram back, could be the same for Eli Stowers. And that's maybe not like the drop issues, but it's just like the lack of size, the lack of strength showing up in the blocking, and then not being this absurdly dynamic player where you can just tell him to line up out wide and win. So, I feel good about Eli Stowers reaching Evan Ingram's, production. He's mostly been like, Evan Ingram's mostly been like a 600-yard, 3 to 4 touchdown guy most of his career, other than that one breakout year. And so I feel like Eli Stowers can have a pretty similar career to that and probably will be a starting tight end in this league.
Yeah, I think so too. The traits are there. 45-inch vertical, 6'4" build, nearly 33-inch arms. What's that catch radius? I mean, that's just, you're adding a whole yard to your catch radius right there. Like a 45-inch vertical is absolutely insane. But only 3 years of playing tight end, like you said, quarterback turned tight end prospect, and I think that shows up a lot on his tape. He's very raw overall, and I think that's where my red flags really are concerning with me. And I'm buying the traits. I'm buying the athleticism. I obviously have him at number 2, but I am concerned about him, like you said, maybe being stuck as a tweener though, and not finding a true role, not being a guy who can separate from cornerbacks, but is probably going to have to be lined out more out there because cool enough to be tight end. That's what I'm really worried about with him. But I think overall, he's got the speed and the burst to blow by the second level. Is the guy who can get open. He's fast. He's fluid. Like I said, he can jump very high. He's got an insane catch radius, but he just lacks the experience and the physicality and the effort as a blocker to, be an overly exciting, complete tight end prospect. But the athletic traits are so high there and the production's there that you got to take a risk on somebody like this in the second or third round because the ceiling is through the roof.
Totally agree. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk about another guy who is very high ceiling with Kenyon Sadiq, projected first round pick from me, 7.927 grade. I think overall, Ryan, we're talking about the best tight end prospect of the class, obviously, but there's a lot of people out there that are saying, okay, there's a lot of people out there who are maybe a little too high on him. I don't think he's this overly great prospect that we've seen, like your Loveland, Warren, Bowers, even maybe to the levels of Kincaid. I'd probably put him around similar to Kincaid, maybe a tad bit higher, but I think that's kind of where I'm landing with Sadiq. I don't see him as this otherworldly player, but I see him as a damn good football player overall and brings a lot of juice. And you got the Vernon Davis comp there for you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you in terms of like he's maybe getting a little too overhyped just because he is the top guy of this class. So it's draft time. It's time to like boost up guys' profiles. But I think comparing him to guys of the past, like you said, I definitely would not have had him over Dalton Kincaid just with how high I was on him. I wouldn't have had him over Trey McBride, and Trey McBride was a second round pick. So I just think as a prospect, he's getting a little bit overrated, but I mean, let's talk about what he does do well. I mean, he's an insane athlete for his size. He's a bit undersized at 6'3", 240, but still, he ran a 4.39, 99 percentile on RAS. He broke out really nicely this year with the 560 yards and 8 touchdowns as a 20-year-old junior. So the profile looks great, but I just think that I'm not as big on the film as I am on his like athletic profile and production. To me, he looks like a big vertical receiver who can win on mismatches with like safeties and linebackers. But otherwise, there's not a lot that he does that I like necessarily. He's not a great route runner, in my opinion. He's not very sudden, doesn't separate as consistently as I like, doesn't really have that great hip mobility to drop his weight, get out of breaks. I think like the separation is is the main skill I look at for an elite tight end prospect. And to me, like Sadiq doesn't have that, which keeps him out of that elite group of, prospects that we previously mentioned where they could separate like wide receivers. He also has some drop issues and isn't really this dominant contested catcher. Not a good blocker either. Every time I saw him one-on-one with a defensive end, he gets shoved back multiple steps into the backfield. So I don't think he's going to be used in line that much. I think overall he's going to have some really high moments as a vertical threat, but then also probably some very low ones. And it's going to be an inconsistent roller coaster for much of his career. And I think that's why my NFL comp being Vernon Davis fits pretty well. Both are like similarly sized freak athletes. Vernon Davis ended up shooting up all the way into the top 10 of the draft because of his combine, when in reality, like his skills were probably that of a day 2 pick. And I kind of think the same thing's happening with Sadiq. I have high confidence that he can reach the Vernon Davis comparison I gave to him, which is basically just, a 600, 700 yard receiver and around 6 touchdowns a season, while maybe like having a peak season of around 1,000 yards. And I'd say that probably puts him as like a borderline top 10 tight end most years, while maybe some years hitting that top 5. But he's definitely not some like can't miss prospect in my opinion. But I think it's safe to say, just because of the draft capital and the athleticism, that he is, not far and away, but pretty comfortably the number 1 of this class.
Yeah, I think for me, when we're talking about him and we're talking about the traits as well, those are obviously all there. Like, this guy has the insane speed. Look at the build on him. I mean, you can see it in the picture. I got flagged in one of my videos for sexual content. It was a Kenyon Sadiq clip.
No way.
I swear to God, they were like sexual content. I said, who? I was like, look, is it the freak of the human being? Like, that is just the big arms. That's what people are getting aroused. I'm getting reported for getting aroused.
Little Zeke Elliott crop top going there, though.
Exactly. But yeah, I don't know if this is one of those build your offense around this kind of guy players like you've seen. But I will say he's an early declare with good production and his age. Those guys tend to trend well. I think the only one who's been unsuccessful, at least in the last decade, has been Noah Fant. These early declare productive athletic guys like your Loveland, your Warren, young player, not Warren. Actually, he was not an early declare. He played his fair share of college football, but these athletic guys, they normally tend to trend pretty well with these first round production. And I think he's going to be a solid football player. I don't know if you're going to be able to build your offense around him. I worry about him blocking. I think he's that's the thing about him. I'll give him this. He's got the effort. It's not like he's
really strong.
Yes, very strong player, and he works well upfield. He works much better moving forward than he does laterally. I don't think he's going to get elite separation because he's more than likely going to be lined up on nickelbacks. They're not going to throw a slower linebacker on him, and that's where I really worry about it. Nickelbacks are going to be lining up on him, and I think they're going to be able to stick with him across the field. But he's a physical player. He's really strong. He can run guys over, but he's not in some elusive freak when moving side to side. He's not very agile. I think Max Clare is more agile and elusive than Kenyon Sadiq is. And that's not a knock on Sadiq. He's moving forward quick, and he's strong, and he can run guys over. But I don't think he's some elusive overall freak. And I think that's where I'm kind of afraid of the overall ceiling, because he's going to get nickelbacks on him. They're going to be able to cover him. He's not an overly phenomenal blocker, but he's willing and he has the effort. That's what I love about his tape. He's willing to go up there and fight for the contested catch. He's willing to block if asked. He's not some big-headed ego guy. He's a team player, and he's likely a team captain kind of guy.
Yeah, I see a lot of big plays in his future just up the seam. Oh, yeah. If he can stick as an inline tight end, if he's running up those seams, he can definitely catch a few very big plays and get down the field. I think that's what showed up the most on his Oregon tape, was just all the plays he made down the field in the seams. It seemed like it was on nonstop rotation, just him.
Yeah.
I don't think he's some absurd catch radius, contested catcher necessarily, but but still, that vertical threat is definitely there, and it's something that, can be a real weapon. The main thing is he's got to stick at tight end. He's got to stick in line, and I have questions about his blocking. I think his frame is basically filled out at this point. I can't imagine him getting much bigger. So it's definitely a real concern.
Yeah. Oh, I agree wholeheartly with you there on his frame. I think that it's probably tapped out. I mean, look at the guy. If he gets any bigger, he's going to be on steroids. But another thing, he's only 1 year of starter. Only 1 year as a starter as well. That's kind of okay, he couldn't beat out Terrence Ferguson. And I like Terrence Ferguson coming out of Oregon last year, but with Loveland, it was okay, in his second year in 2023, he was a national champion, insanely productive player, and was Big Ten tight end of the year at 19 years old, moving into his second season his final year, where Warren was first team and he was second team. These guys, they had multiple years of production under their belt. Same with Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers was, if Brock Bowers would have been able to come out a year earlier, he would have been a top 15 pick. And, that's what we're talking about here. Sadiq was borderline second round, first round guy coming into the season, and he lived up to the potential, and he's a first round guy in my eyes, but I don't see this otherworldly prospect.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, I mean, his production feels like a second round pick, if I'm being honest. Just looking at his profile and everything, even some of the advanced numbers I saw, yards per route run, wasn't very good. I know this was his breakout season, but he still only had 600 yards. So it's a little concerning in the sense that his profile isn't that strong, but he's this projected top 15, 20 pick. I wouldn't be surprised if he slid a little bit. I think people are getting a little too high on the combine numbers, and maybe the real NFL executives, they're maybe have already been warned by some of the guys of past that have burned them, like Vernon Davis. Not that Vernon Davis was bad, but I'm just saying, not a top 5. What was he, the 6th pick? I don't think he deserved to be that. So Kenyon Sadiq to me can give you a lot of value if you take him maybe more so late first, early second.
Yeah, I think that there's a good chance he slips, but I also do think that there's some executives out there who will buy into the traits and will select somebody like that. Like people are like, oh, like are you going to be absolutely stunned come draft night, Ryan, if Kansas City selects him at 9? Kansas City.
No.
Are you going to be stunned? Like that wouldn't surprise me. Now, a team like let's say Baltimore, like that would shock me. I would be like, I think Philadelphia is kind of been my landing spot consistently for him. That might be receiver now with AJ Brown being gone, but I mean they had Wicks and Hollywood Brown. It could be Kenyon Sadiq as well on the other side of Dallas Goedert, maybe, but I don't know. I would not be surprised if like that just seems like such a cheap
Chiefs.
Yeah,
I would have said like the Rams if they were still picking up there too. Like that just seems like a pick.
They have 13.
They still have 13. They traded 30. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, I could see the Rams doing that. Maybe he finally overtakes Terrence Ferguson. Full circle.
Yeah, full circle moment right there. It'd be hilarious. Just the whole Oregon tight end room up and at him. There was another Oregon wide receiver or tight end. Who was it? Was it Endries? Endries transferred from Oregon to Texas. No, didn't he?
I think you're right. Wait.
Let me look that up before we cut the video. Was he?
No, he was at Cal.
Cal, that's where he was. Who was at freaking Oregon?
Someone was at Oregon, but
oh yeah, I had that in my notes. Cal, Endries was like the most reliable target for Fernando Mendoza, so something to keep an eye on.
Might have been Carson Ryan, my sleeper. I think he was like Oregon, USC, and then Utah or something. Like you bounced around and then finally settled in at BYU. So
yeah, all right. Well, he was at UCLA, then Utah. So I don't know who it actually was, but I think there was another tight end at Oregon. But who cares? We're going to wrap it up. There's our top 10 tight ends. We still have running backs, wide receivers, and we're only going to do 5 quarterbacks because it is not a quarterback juicy class. But we have top 10 running backs coming out tomorrow. Receivers the day after that. Quarterbacks the day after that. Ryan's going to be here for each and every one of them. Thanks so much for tuning in to another video, guys. We'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.